Hello, welcome to a brand new episode of NG Meets. I hope you're all staying safe and continuing to handle this time as best you can, despite what seem like confusing and at times contradictory messages being passed down. But if you're all doing your best, looking out for each other, and maybe starting to feel a little bit better about things at this tough time. This week's episode, I am chatting to Tyla Henriques-White. Tyla was one of the organisers of the anti-racism protest that took place at Forest Rec earlier this year. Along with her friends Shan and Janelle, they organised that event where around 5,000 people turned out to protest against racism, and obviously a lot of that was going along across the world in light of the brutal murder of George Flloyd in America and numerous other incidents. We talk about some of that in the show. In the aftermath of that, the three of them were looking at what they could do next and making sure that that change happened this time, because we've seen these protests in the past and again we keep coming back to them. So they formed an organisation called Next Gen Movement. The Next Gen Movement they describe as a millennial driven organisation focusing on empowering the youth, fighting against racism and being a voice for the community to create permanent change. And what they're basically doing is getting out there and trying to make a permanent and actual change. They are meeting with absolutely dozens of organisations, from the police to the council to kids groups such as Python Club and the Tomorrow Project, and other people, and Kieran, who was a guest on the show earlier this year. They've met with him about the work he does with helping kids achieve. So they are basically about the next level and about taking this feeling at the moment and taking it forward. And I have to say, having spoken to Tyla and having seen the work they're doing, it is quite frankly incredible that after, I think they've been around about 2 months and they've got so much going on. I highly recommend you check out their page on Facebook, facebook.com/Next Gen Movement UK, to see the stuff they've got going on. They keep you up to date on the meeting they're having, the groups they're meeting with, but also they've got workshops and projects they're working on, some that they're looking to try and get funded with, so you can find links to GoFundMe campaigns on there to see how you can support this, because obviously they're a small organisation and there's so much that needs to be done. So I had a chat with Tyler and we talked about the Next Gen Movement, what they're hoping to achieve, building around education, empowerment, employment, and things like that. So it was a fascinating chat. Talked about what's going on. We talked about the hidden racism. I think one of the key things is, and we see a lot obviously, is in terms of retaliation to this, about this being an American problem. We talk about the sort of subtle, more underhanded racism that you often see in the workplace or just in general, in small comments that people maybe don't even realise. And it's not all about outspoken groups like the EDL, BNP, National Front, those kind of groups. And that's why education, I think, is key. So it was fascinating to talk to Tyla about things like that. We talked about some of the reaction we've seen and we're still seeing, and we can still see why it's important. We can look at the reaction to the incident at the weekend when a black MP was pulled over by the police, and some of the reaction we've seen to that. We've all seen obviously what happened in London after the BLM protests, and and the All Lives Matter kind of gang's response to that, who it has to be said are very quiet in the midst of the debate over migration at the moment, but that's a whole different debate. So there's an absolutely ton covered in this. We talk about ways that people can help and educate themselves, learn more. It's important. Everybody needs to be a part of this for it to succeed. Everybody needs to look at themselves, the people around them, the communities, schools and everything about that, if we're going to make this better. and that is vital. That's what we need to do. A quick mention before we go into the episode: there is actually a Black Lives Matter march, although taking place this Saturday. Although this is unorganised by the Next Gen Movement team, they are supporting it. That's taking place in the Old Market Square at 12 p.m. on the 15th. So, if you are able and want to, you can go along to that. Obviously, do bear in mind, social distancing regulations, face masks and being careful and looking after yourselves. But if you can get down there, that's, a thing to support. So that's taking place on Saturday. As I said, check out the Next Gen Movement on Facebook. As they mentioned in the show, they're working on a website that's going to be like a hub for everything, so that'll be well worth checking out. There's also a couple of other things that come up in the show. We talk about a couple of books that I recommend that people can check out, and we include all them links in the write-up for the episode that you can find at ngdigital.podbean.com, where you can find all our episodes. As ever, we're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcasts. So this, I think, is a vitally important episode. Please listen to it. Please let me know what you think of it. It'd be great to hear feedback on this, as it is on all our episodes, and please share it about with people once you've listened to it. So this is NG Meets Next Gen Movement. So, welcome to NG Meets, and my guest today is Tyla Henriques-White, who is from the Next Gen Movement, which is a Nottingham community organisation fairly recently started. And she's joined us today to talk about the work they're doing. So, Tyla, if you want to kick us off, just tell us a little bit about who Next Gen Movement are and why and how they started.
Yeah, so it was myself and two of my friends, Shan and Janelle. So we've known each other for well over 10 years now. And it started when there were lots of protests happening around the UK. We saw these were happening, and collectively we were just kind of sick and tired of seeing the same thing happen day in, day out. Black people being mistreated, being killed, being discriminated against, wrongfully stopped by the police, etc. And we were waiting for a Nottingham protest, and rather than waiting, we decided to put one on. So we never did a protest before, attended a protest before, so it was all quite new to us. It turned out to be a really powerful day, and it was nice to see so many people from all different walks of life, all different ages come together. And that really kind of, it drove us to set up what now is Next Gen Movement after the protest. So it's run by the three of us, and the focus is really just to be the voice for the community, obviously fight against racism, systemic racism, and really focusing on empowering the youth, particularly in Nottingham, which is where we want to start. So we've kind of got four focuses there's like our values, and they are the 4 E's. So it's education, employability, empowerment, and engagement. So basically, education's around making sure the education system is fair and it's a true representation, rather than it just being, slavery. Talking about slavery as Black history, we don't see that as Black history. That's white history because the Black people were the victims. So it's not our history. So we really want to focus on changing the curriculum under, the education system. With employability, we want to make sure that the recruitment process is improved, and it's making sure that people aren't subject to any, discrimination or prejudice when they go through the employment process. So promoting things like blind CVs and things like that, and really trying to educate workplaces on things such as microaggressions. Because I've experienced them, the little comment here and there. Oh, is that your real hair? Or, I'm almost as dark as you. And, just those little comments where they're still racist. We kind of describe it as the British way of being racist. Very subtle, but it's still racism. So we really want to focus on that under employability. Engagement is about, which I'll talk a bit more later, but it's about engaging the community and the youth through things like workshops and projects. So we've got a couple of projects that we're looking to start as soon as possible, and workshops. And we've noticed that a lot of the there's very few left now, but the youth and the community centres, they don't actually offer many things other than sport, which is fine for some people. But in this day and age, a 13-year-old probably doesn't want to sit around all day watching a film or playing ping pong. They probably want to, learn things like about social media, just things that are relevant to the times, basically, is what we really want to do. And then empowerment is focusing on empowering the youth. So it's linked to self-love, their mental health. So a lot of young Black people have experienced trauma in relation to racism from their childhood. So, really empowering them, making sure that they, know their roots, know their history, and to make sure that they're confident in themselves, basically. So that's kind of how it started and what the organisation is in a nutshell. So, yeah.
One of the interesting things about that is it sounds like when you were planning the protest event at Forestfield, and at that point, that was the full plan that you were working on. So am I right that the whole next gen movement came after the protest itself? So it's quite amazing actually how fast that's moved. Because that's a month, 2 months ago maybe, and the fact that you've got such a structure in place so quickly, and I think that's pretty incredible.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, initially we put it on. We didn't expect it to be as big as it was. It was around 4,000 people at the protest, I think. And at first we were just going to have it in the Market Square in Nottingham City Centre, and then we actually ended up moving it to the Forest because of the numbers. But yeah, like you said, it's moved so quickly. It's been so, it's been really fast paced, and it's more than any of us were, ever expecting. We're still in the process of, building up the organisation, educating ourselves and things like that. But yeah, no, it's definitely moved super fast.
Yeah,
So,
I know my partner went to the protest, and I think when you consider, everything that's going on at the moment in terms of the coronavirus, the lockdown, it's quite incredible how successful that was, given obviously, a lot of people were unable to come due to shielding and lockdown reasons. It's a very difficult, and it's a very difficult time to get people talking about anything beyond the virus and the impact that's had.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think I've had it has taken over the world effectively. So I think it says something about how the way this issue has grown and where people are in terms of what's going on, that even in the midst of everything that's going on, it was like that, now people are now feeling that they've got to speak out. And, because, and I think you talked about this in other interviews and things, what happened, obviously, the George Floyd incident was the catalyst for this in America, but that wasn't an incident that's unusual in America. We've seen this time and time again, and it's interesting that this time it feels like, we've seen protests in the past, and we've seen unrest in the past in response to events like this, even in London, in Tottenham in 2011. But this is the first time there's felt this sustained sort of belief behind it, where it's not, where people are saying, look, it's no good with getting angry, but then just going back and carrying on. We've got to keep going this time, or we'll all be back doing this again in 2 years, or so.
Exactly.
It feels different this time.
It definitely feels different. Definitely, yeah. And just like you said, we can't just kind of get angry and stop there. That was one of the reasons after the protest. We were like, we don't just want it to end here. We really want to make real change. And it's been called the biggest civil rights movement in history. Just it was 50 states that did protest.
Yeah.
This was from June. I'm not sure about today, because I know there's been some more since June, but 18 countries have had Black Lives Matter protest. And it's actually, there's been a lot of people around the country that have, since protest, set up their own organisations, or it's kind of prompted them to want to do extra things in their community, towards equal rights. Basically, that's all we're asking for, equal rights.
Yes.
So yeah, it definitely feels different this time. And we don't want it to, be a trend, because to some people it does seem like it's a bit of a trend, and it's, aesthetically pleasing on their social media to have, a picture of them at a protest holding a sign up, and then they just kind of leave it at that. But that's really, not what we want. We want to make a real change, like I say, to start in Nottingham, and then hopefully we can influence or work with other cities as well going forward. So. Yeah.
Again, as you say, it's about sustaining it, isn't it? And particularly once that sort of real, I guess, the real sort of fury has sort of died down into that sort of, the anger will still be there, but people can't keep out. The protests will only go so far, and then it's about where you go next, which obviously is what your organisation is looking at, and you talked about there your 4 key points. And I think one of the key things that again feels like it's been talked about this time that hasn't been talked about in the past has been education.
Yes.
And that is, as you say, that is so key, because I think we all look back at what we learned at school, and there's the old saying, isn't there? History is written by the victors, so to speak. So we only learn what they consider to be the great things about Britain. So we don't, at least when I went to school, I don't recall learning about the awful things that Britain did during during its history, when it was going around ruling the world, and we're told about how it took democracy out, but we're not told about how it oppressed people and killed people and enslaved people, as you say. So it's so important, and I think you're seeing that with what's happening we're seeing for the first time buildings being renamed. And so it definitely, again, it feels different, and I think education is, as you say, is so key.
It really is, and from a really young age as well, even from sort of primary school age, before they get to secondary school, and before they have too much influence from sometimes home life, because we've spoke to some people that we've met since the protest or at the protest, and they've said they're white, and they've said I've been brought up in a fairly racist household, and it's meant that I've had to unlearn so many different things and educate myself. And it's difficult. I mean, I'm educating myself on the real Black history, but then you've also got people who aren't Black who are doing the same, which is amazing. They're going out of their I suppose comfort zone, because their family may have completely different views to them, and they're going to protests, they're watching documentaries, reading books, and really taking a proactive approach to learn more and learn the truth. So yeah, no, it's been amazing to see, the support and yeah, people just basically rallying behind us. And
yeah, I think one of the interesting things I saw in the aftermath as well was talk about, particularly, white people, instead of just asking the Black community, what should I do, actually going out and learning themselves. Stop expecting, the Black community to answer all the questions or to provide the route forward. Go out and learn these things, like you say. Watch things like 13th, for example, on Netflix, which is incredible. And I mean, and read, books like Natives, or I'm no longer talking to white people about race. The stuff is out there, so stop expecting to be spoon fed.
Exactly.
The response, I think, is key. And again, it's like you say, because I think back to being a child, and I think back to the way people just casually talked about, the way the names used to refer things to like the local shop.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
The takeaway. And I think back, and I think that I knew those words for those places before I ever had any clue what they meant.
Yeah.
And like you say, and that, so when you're putting that to people at a young age, it's no wonder they don't comprehend the problem, or have more difficulty, because, again, the education's not there.
Exactly. It's such a shame that it's so normalised as well.
Yes,
like obviously said as a child, you've heard that.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, at least my experience is that's a lot better. But then I'm not within the same kind of communities that I was when I was, so maybe I don't know what it's like on the school playground as much now. I only know, from a personal point of view. But I think, obviously social media offers both ends. It offers a great learning resource and a great way to educate yourself, but it also offers as we've seen, it offers a platform for people that maybe kept certain views quiet and hidden, or within the home. And now, and I think we've all seen what happened after, the referendum, etc. We saw, certainly sort of feels like a spike in that kind of racist, xenophobic attitudes were coming out. So I think that's something that as a society and that is figuring how we're going to deal with the social media side of things, and where the accountability holds there.
Exactly. No, social media is such a powerful thing. A lot of negative comes out of it, like you say, xenophobia and racism, but there's also a lot of positive as well, in terms of the amount of things, the amount of education is more easily accessible for our generation, I think, as opposed to 20 years ago, for example. So definitely more accessible to find things and to just educate yourself, basically. So I
have spoken to people in the past that have said, obviously, because obviously a great thing about social media is getting information, and it probably made it a lot easier for yourselves in terms of putting the protest event on and getting out there. But I've spoken to people in the past who've also said that it's also meant that people can feel like they're doing something without actually having to go out. And so it's, people aren't necessarily taking to the streets with their activism, because they can just post, and I think you mentioned it earlier, you can just post a supportive message or or image or whatever on screen, rather than in the past, when your only option really was to take to the streets.
Exactly. And some people don't, like you said about COVID-19, a lot of people still at the time of the protest didn't feel comfortable and still don't feel so comfortable being out there, which is fair enough, and it's their right, it's their choice to be able to do that. But like you say, with loads of encouraging messages, even just asking, if you've got any Black friends, how are they feeling during this time? What's going on in their mind, kind of thing. And also there's petitions that you can sign. If you actively aren't, out in the community, but you feel like you want to make a difference, there's petitions, and you can donate to. There's something called Black Minds Matter. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's basically a platform for Black people to seek therapy that have experienced trauma, or they may be going through depression, anxiety, in relation to racism. So, there's lots of different things that people can do. Of course, we've got a GoFundMe page as well, which is for funds towards some of the community projects that we want to start within the next few weeks. So just a couple of those that we're looking to launch is, and it kind of links to what I said about youth clubs and having more relevant and up-to-date courses for youth. So there's one about social media marketing. So that's going to be a workshop for people aged between sort of 14 and 18. And it's going to make sure that they can build on their social media to market their skills. And it's really a creative course, and it's linked into how to use social media and make it into a business as well. There's also going to be one around Black excellence. And that's for young Black and mixed race children aged between 8 to 16. It's just going to look into British Black history, business, culture, and just to, again, help to empower them. Just to educate them basically on the real history. And there's going to be other things such as, referee training, film and video editing, how to start a side hustle. So there's lots of different things and ideas that we've got floating around, but they're the main 5 projects that we wanted to launch going into sort of the mid-August, which we're really excited about. So it should be really good.
Excellent. As like you say, I mean, it's incredible the way this organisation, the way it's developing and growing, and the opportunities that it's presenting. Obviously, hopefully people listening will check out the work you're doing and the GoFundMe campaign. We'll make sure there's a link up to that. Because obviously that's what you need, the support to be able to carry out these fantastic ideas.
Exactly.
So with regards to the protest event, did you get much pushback in regards to obviously the timing with, because obviously that's been thrown about quite a bit, hasn't it? The midst of a lockdown. And obviously a lot of the people saying this were using that as an excuse. They're the same people that will be against protesting no matter when it's done. But it did give them sort of a target, didn't it? So I'm just wondering, how was that something that weighed quite heavily on you when you were organising that? Because obviously we are in the midst of this event, and we are being told, from all angles what we've got to do.
Well, we did, so we have got absolutely loads of support, which was great, but then there was obviously, the negative comments. So Nottinghamshire Post, they put a few articles out about the protest leading up to it and afterwards. Of course, there was some really nasty comments, some racist, and some just purely against the fact of protesting just because of a pandemic. And like I said earlier, I understand not everyone's going to be in agreement with, gatherings during a pandemic, and I totally get that. There were the people that did come that were cautious about COVID. There was an option to actually social distance towards sort of the middle and the back. People were still able to social distance, which was great. And we also got help from a lovely guy called Alex, who came and handed out free PP to some of the people there as well, which was lovely. But of course, the negative comments weren't nice. we do try to, ignore them, especially the ones on the news article comments and things like that. But we definitely did get quite a few negative comments about it, which, it's not nice, but not everyone's going to be supportive and friendly and nice, are they, unfortunately?
No.
So, yeah.
Like I say, that I mean, obviously there will, and I'm sure it's not difficult to tell the difference between those that are genuinely concerned about the timing and the virus, and those that are using that as an excuse. They're the same people that if it was another time of year would be saying you shouldn't be doing it on a work day, or you shouldn't be allowed to block the roads, or they don't mind you having something to say as long as they don't have to hear it. So,
exactly. You can't please everyone. There's always going to be some people that disagree, or people that are just simply negative.
Well, I mean, we've seen what happened in London, haven't we? I think so. And
the counter protests.
Yes,
the ones,
of course.
All Lives Matter ones.
Yeah. I know I was looking at an article you did, or an interview you did with Left Lion, and you talked about one of the issues that's come up, and now we've seen this a lot, of this idea that because obviously this built up or was instigated by the aftermath of the George Flloyd murder, and the call for not only the arrest and charge of the officers involved, but also to finally do something about what is clearly an issue within the police in America, and the systematic racism and the murders. But that led to we saw a lot of people saying that this is an American problem, which it clearly isn't. And I think in the article I saw, it was pointed out that I think this is the only country, Britain's the only place that had a counter protest. And also we saw the plane that flew over, I think it was Manchester City's ground during a match with Burnley. So I think we've always, I think there's always been a little bit of a British attitude that it's not really a problem here, is it? And we we see this thread about Britain were the first to end slavery, which isn't actually true. I think Haiti and places like that were ahead of us. But even then, that is just, again, it's just another way, I guess, of people wanting to bury their head in the sand.
Exactly. I mean, it's very, I suppose to some people it's not obvious, but there's definitely racism in the UK. There's definitely police brutality in the UK. We're lucky that they're not all armed like they are in America, so it's a lot easier for them to just kind of fire the gun and instantly kill someone. But I mean, we did actually a community survey where we got just over 500 responses, I think, and we asked people their opinions and kind of what they wanted to see change. And a lot of them were linked into education, but also police. And all people are asking for is to just be treated with respect, because it's very clear. I mean, I've seen it myself, and there's a lot of other community leaders, if you like, that have seen similar things for their own eyes, where even the way in which particularly young black males, but black people in general, are approached and how they're treated in comparison to white people, it's very clearly different. I've got one example. Someone was stopped and searched 8 times in one day, didn't find anything, and we're in the process at the moment of actually educating ourselves on know your rights, so people actually know what should happen in these sorts of scenarios, because I'm sure you're supposed to get a ticket every time you get stopped and searched, but that doesn't happen 9 times out of 10. And that's only one example. There's times where people have had their nose broken by police during arrests. They've been killed in police custody by police. So, it's definitely an issue in England, in the UK, sorry. And I just wish people would open their eyes, really, and all the information's out there. It's not an assumption. It's a shame that not everyone understands it, but the education and accessibility to education is getting better. So all we can do is hope that those ignorant people, educate themselves, and get clued up on it, I suppose. So,
well, I don't think our major media organisations in this country particularly help in that aspect.
Yeah, absolutely not.
I think that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge something like the police force that we're brought up to think is this noble endeavour. And obviously a lot of people get into that there's an issue with it, and so it's easier to look for simple answers. So it makes to make people feel better, but that doesn't solve the problem. As you said, there's clearly a problem there.
Exactly, and it was just yesterday evening, that we actually had a meeting with Nottinghamshire Police. So we've already had a call with them, but they actually put together a focus group, I suppose. So it was Next Gen Movement that were there, and there were a few other organisations there as well, and a few people from different areas in the police. So there was the hate crime unit that were there, superintendent. So there was quite a few people there just to kind of talk about the current issues. But it was actually a really good platform for us to be able to ask those difficult questions. It seems like they are, keen to make a change. It's a shame that it's taken the death of George Flloyd and the protests, and everyone making noise for them to make a change. But we're really, looking to and keen to work with them, as well as the Nottinghamshire Council, City Council, to really, I suppose, we want to walk together rather than them kind of leading behind us. And we really want to be able to guide them and to be the voice of the community, to talk about what people are thinking, how they're feeling, and just to really explain why people don't trust the police, because people have got their own anxieties. Even I've got my own anxieties. I'm most certainly in the past. They're supposed to be there to protect us, but it really doesn't feel that way a lot of the time. And there are so many people in this city that really would do anything other than call the police if they were in trouble. They really would not feel comfortable in any circumstance to call the police, which is shocking. So we really do want to change it, and help to build trust. But it's definitely going to take a lot of work from their end, to help build that community trust back up again. So yeah, definitely.
I guess it's key, and it's at least the positive that they are engaging with groups like yourselves, because as you say, it needs everybody coming together, moving this forward. And I've seen, obviously, you've been meeting with lots of different groups and organisations. I think you've been talking to the people from the Nottingham project, which obviously is a fantastic new initiative, and groups like Helping Kids Achieve, who we had Kieran on earlier in the year, and obviously the work he's doing and his group are doing is just fantastic stuff. And like you were talking about, giving kids opportunities that they're not necessarily getting elsewhere.
Exactly. And we're also working with the Python Club as well, who do a similar thing to Helping Kids Achieve. And it's nice for us to be able to, for other organisations to be open to collaborating with us, because we don't want to be counterproductive and just repeat things that have already been done in the city. And of course, they're going to be a lot more experienced than us. They've been in the game for a lot longer than we have in terms of community work. So it's been really good to work together, and we're still working together on particularly on the community projects and the workshops as well. So yeah, they've been a really good help for us.
Fantastic. I've often said I do feel like that Nottingham, or the organisations groups in Nottingham, the collaboration, it always seems to be really fantastic. Groups always seem to be very keen to work together, as opposed to against each other, or like you say, repeating or doing, reinventing the wheel, which
exactly
isn't helping anyone. But
yeah,
as I say, I mean, again, you've got it's so much going on, and so much you've already accomplished. It's quite staggering that at the beginning of this year, the Next Gen movement didn't exist.
I know, exactly.
Yeah,
I think it's great that we're all friends, which
yes.
makes it a lot easier day to day. But yeah, it's definitely been manic.
As a friend group, then, of these sort of community event type thing, were you already involved in that kind of thing, or is this completely brand new to all of you?
Yeah, so it's completely brand new in terms of, like, we've not been to a protest before, and we've not really done community work as such in the past, and this is definitely something that's very new to us, which is another key reason why we're working with some of the community leaders as well, for mentorship, support, as well as collaboration. But yeah, no, I mean, we've always been very close for like over 10 years. We've always been very outspoken as well, and very passionate. And we've always been very passionate about these issues. But since the protest, it's definitely given us that extra push to, get out there and do the things that we're doing.
So yes, again, I wouldn't have guessed that you were all so new to this. As testament, I guess, to the passion and how important it is to you all.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even speaking to like the news, for example, and on the radio, Janelle is a presenter on Kemet FM, so she's already, she's a DJ as well, so she's really confident with speaking to just anyone, really. And it's definitely, I've just had to get over my anxieties and my shyness with speaking to people, and I think it's quite natural when you're speaking about something that you're passionate about anyway, and that's something that you really enjoy doing. But yeah, it's definitely a lot bigger than we thought it would be, but it's all good.
Such a weird time for us all.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wonder whether that maybe has played a part in why the response to what happened has been different this time. Because I guess maybe people were paying more attention, because obviously, to a degree, the world has somewhat slowed down for a lot of people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
For a lot of us, we're stuck, or we've been very limited in what we can do, and maybe it's meant people have had more time to see what's happening, to follow what's happening, because it's very difficult. The news cycle moves so fast, and I've seen this in other issues. Something blows up, a big issue, and quickly then is overtaken by something else. But and at the same time, we're all obviously running around day to day doing what we have to do, while that to a degree somewhat has slowed down. So maybe it's given people a time to actually pay more attention to what's going on. We can look at what people are having to say rather than just seeing the headlines. Maybe that's, and I guess people also, I think there's I guess people, it's quite a time at the moment as well where people's feelings are already quite hyped and sparked. So people are, I guess maybe that it's making people more responsive. I'm just, I'm just. I find it interesting that it feels different and it feels more sustained. Yet it isn't new.
Yeah,
We all
exactly.
know. I'm sure we all remember. Eric Garner. We all remember Trayvon Martin. I saw something not long ago. I think it was a video for a song, and they started putting names at the end of the video of and this was obviously America, but it just kept going and going, and to the point where the names started having to fill up the screen as opposed to be one at a time. So
I know, it's so shocking, isn't
yeah,
it?
and obviously even now we know Breonna Taylor. I'm sure many people have heard that, and even there, that's at the moment no one seems to be being held to account to what seems a blatantly obvious case of murder.
Exactly. I dread to think like how her family feels as well, that she's just on constant, memes, and yes, majority of it is, supportive, but they want justice at the end of the day. So it must just be so heartbreaking for her family and her friends, because it's heartbreaking to me, and I don't know her, so I can't imagine what her family feels like during this time. It's just that whole situation really, and what happened is disgusting. And it just kind of proves the point that, we've not got equal rights yet. I mean, why, if that was someone that was white, would, what would happen then? I mean, would the same thing happen? So yeah, it's, I mean, for me, you mentioned about, people kind of slowing down and things like that with lockdown and the pandemic. I've been on furlough, and it's made me reflect on a lot of things. So the current events, but also things that have happened in the past, in America, in the UK, and also personal to me as well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Shannon, Janelle can, sort of echo that they've had time to, because we've slowed down, it gives you a chance to actually reflect and think, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe that so many things have happened, and, why didn't I do this sooner? So yeah, it's been a really crazy time. And yeah, we just want positive change for the future. We don't want to be sat 10 years, 20 years from now having the same conversations with the same people. Things really just need to change, and it's almost like some people think we're asking for something unreasonable, but we're really not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think
it should be simple, but it's not. So
yeah, it's so it's like you say, it's so obvious, but then the people that are fighting back against it, they're disingenuous when they say things like all lives matter and things like that. I think most of us can see through what they're really saying, and but it's the trouble with that is it sounds like they care, or at least I think that one has. Hopefully, I think most people have seen through that one. But I mean that we saw that happen. I think when Black Lives Matter first launched, didn't we? And we saw that, and we saw Blue Lives Matter, and but I think obviously a key thing, I guess, will be how this then is kept going once things get a bit more back to normal, as they're slowly starting to. And I guess that's why it's so important to keep it going now, and to that, I don't know if momentum's the right word, but it can't.
To keep people talking about it.
Yes, like I say, because it's otherwise it's not going to change, and there are plenty of people in particularly in powerful places that would quite like it to go quiet again. Some of them in extremely powerful places, at least for now.
Definitely. I mean, we definitely want the conversation to continue. We've got social media platforms. So we've got, you know, Instagram and Facebook. We try to post as regularly as possible, just with updates on what we're up to, but also like little education pieces that people can, you know, read upon, and petitions that they can sign. And you speak about people in powerful places being uncomfortably silent on the matter or against it, which is a shame. I mean, I'm not sure if you know Nadia Whittam.
Yes,
she's not in MP. Yeah, so she's been absolutely amazing. She's been so supportive. She actually came to the protest as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so we had a catch up with her probably quite a while back in June, just like an informal sort of chit chat. But it's nice to know that, you know, that there are people in power that are supporting us, and you know, we've got power in numbers. We've got our followers, we've got the people that came to the protest, and they're so supportive, and so open to educating themselves and helping us. And we've got so many, you know, amazing donations as well towards our project. So that's kind of how we're going to continue, you know, keeping the conversation going through social media, through the community work that we're going to be doing over the coming months and beyond. And yeah, we just encourage people to do the same. You know, not everyone can do community work, of course, but even just through social media, you know, let's not silence this issue. Let's continue speaking about it, because it's not like it's solved. You know, it's still going on. People are still being killed. So we just need to keep speaking about it, basically.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you say, you know, you often hear people say, well, you know, it's a lot better than it was, you know, in 50 years or whatever. It's like, but that doesn't mean you stop. Exactly. You know, and it might be better, but it's quite clear we still don't have equality. I mean, you talked earlier in the episode when you were talking about the 4 E's, and you mentioned employability.
Yeah.
And we all, I think it's well known that, you know, that people can be rejected to a job purely on having a non-white sounding name.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned blind CVs. But obviously even that only gets someone in the door.
Exactly.
And I mean, I've seen people, you know, I've seen people posting about being turned down for, you know, for renting accommodation.
Yeah.
You know, based on as soon as they've told someone their name, suddenly a place isn't available. And you know, so it's a lot still to do. And I think it's a lot that I guess people. I think one of the problems is when you've got groups out there like, you know, the BNP, EDL, and things like that people can say, are quite blatantly and obviously racist and not hiding it.
Yeah,
they allow the more subtle, systematic things to somewhat go under the radar, because they don't seem racist in the same way as something like that. And I think there's a lot of I think you might have said something, mentioned it earlier in the show. I think you called it British racism, which is that, I guess, the more subtle, maybe where people don't necessarily even realise it.
Yeah, the microaggressions.
And
the ignorance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so things like, you don't sound black, or you're very articulate. Those little comments that people, you know, they may not think are racist. I would hope after, you know, over the last couple of months, that they now know that it's not right to say things like that. But it's really common. I mean, I've had a lot of those types of things said to me. I used to work in a call centre, for example, and customers sometimes would say, "Oh, you know, are you black? You don't sound black." Or people, you know, grabbing on, touching my hair. Like, why would you do that? It's almost like I'm not being treated like I'm a human. It's almost like I'm an alien sometimes, so yeah. Or people say, oh yeah, play the race card, it's not always about race, those sorts of things. And that links quite a lot into employability as well, because we want to be able to provide real diversity training in the workplace that's not generic. Because a lot of those big corporations have inclusion and diversity training. It's often very, very generic, but we really want to focus on identifying what microaggressions are, how to identify them, what to do if you hear someone say that, understanding different cultures as well, so to not be ignorant or racist to people, because a lot of it is ignorance. People just aren't bothered. So yeah, definitely. I mean, we call it the British way of being racist. There are obviously people that are very much, they'll say racial slurs, very openly face. But people, British people have the reputation of being quite polite. Well, I've not seen that many. Well, it's a bit of both, and that's why I'm kind of calling it the British way of being racist. So yeah.
But yeah, I think I can't remember where I saw it, but I think part of it comes from this idea that, or in this, I guess in much of the Western world, that white is the sort of normal, so anything else is different.
Sorry, I missed that.
I think I can't remember. It might have been in Natives or Carla's book or something. But it's the sort of that the West, I guess, to a degree, is built on this sort of idea that white is the normal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the basic. So everything that, like you said, everything else is considered different. So you don't sound black, or that's not a black sounding name, or even, and I talked about this with my partner. I even talked about from a personal point of view. If I'm talking about, I was talking about, say, a Samuel L. Jackson film, and you were describing him to somebody, you would say, the first thing you would say is the black actor.
Yes, exactly.
If you were describing Brad Pitt to somebody, you wouldn't go the white actor.
Exactly.
And it's something that is so normalized that even I've even talked to my partner about about that myself. So I think it's so easy, but I think that's, again, hopefully that's the kind of thing that people will start to realize. It's not just about going, it's not just about the people that go out there and chant slurs in the street or tell people to go back to where they're from. It's about addressing it's about addressing it in all of us, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're seen as so different as Black people, and people seem to forget that Black people have been in the UK for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's not like we've just arrived and it's new. Like, we're just as much part of British history as anyone else is. So for us to always feel like we're being alienated, it's not nice. Yeah. I mean, I've got family here that on my mum's side of the family, all the way back to my great great grandma was born in the UK. So it's a lot of my history is in the UK. Yet people are telling me to go back to where I've come from. So it's just it's disgusting. That's the only word I've got for it.
Yeah, I mean, you sometimes sit there and wonder what decade we're living in, don't you? It's, I don't know. It's like, I mean, but again, we feel like it feels like this is a different thing that's happening now. Hopefully, I mean, as we've said, one of the key things is education.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think it involves everybody, and I don't know the answer,
Yeah.
I'm sure. No, I mean, well, I think the things your organisation are doing fantastic. I think
Thank you.
the community support, especially as well, and you talked about, offering opportunities to people, offering skills, offering identity to people.
Yeah.
Again, and that's another thing, and why representation in all aspects, whether it's film, TV, business world, is so important, because it's important. People want to be able to see people they can identify with.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think empowering people, and for too long, I think we all know that for a long time, and even still now, black actors, black characters in shows, we're generally the baddie, the drug dealer, the gangster, and it's obviously it's getting better, but even in the aftermath of this, we've seen a lot of people within the TV and film world come out and talk about the way they're treated behind the scenes still.
Yeah.
Even from shows that make a big deal about being inclusive and diverse.
Well, it was just the other day that, was it yesterday or the day before? I'm not too sure. I'm not sure if you've seen the video of BBC News, and one of the presenters actually used a racial slur on air to describe what was said. But why not just say that it was a racial slur rather than saying the actual word?
Yeah.
That's the BBC.
Yeah.
And then you've got shows like The X Factor. I'm not sure if you've seen it. It was quite a few years ago now. She was called Misha B. She was a really great singer, and she came out about the racism that she experienced on The X Factor and lies that were told. And, Gary Barlow came out and kind of confirmed that. Just even stereotypes, being labelled the angry black woman, being a diva, causing a fuss backstage, being a bully, and it was all lies. But then that's ruined. Well, it did in the past ruined her reputation. And these massive shows and massive networks that are openly all behind the scenes being racist. And yeah, it's just shocking, but at the same time, it's not, because it just proves the point of systemic racism that's still very much happening today.
Yes, and I think that's, like you said, the angry black woman trope or stereotype, if you want to call it, and that's something, because obviously, again, that women in general, anytime they are strong or stand up for themselves, are labelled in a way that men aren't, and then obviously it's even worse for black women.
I mean, I've definitely been labelled it before, just for speaking about something passionately. And I'm sorry, don't have to get angry. Oh, I'm not, like, don't attack me. And it's like, I'm not attacking you. I'm just speaking on something passionately. So.
And does that? But then does that? Obviously, that must play on your mind in the sense that that's going to be used to undermine anything you have to say. So I guess then, does that then put you on a sort of almost checking yourself in a way that if I'm having a debate with somebody, as long as I don't start getting into personal insults, I'm not going to be dismissed because I get loud or frustrated or angry. Well, you've got to bear that in mind when you, as an addition, not only have you got to make your point, present your argument, but you've got to stay calm while other people don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, now I definitely don't care. But a few years ago, I definitely said, I'd almost kind of suppress my true self to make others feel comfortable, whether that's in a work setting, or just in a generic setting. I would look at my audience and look who I'm with, and if I don't know the people, very well, I would definitely then, you know, think, okay, I've got to think about how I'm coming across. And you do that anyway, you know, you don't want to come across rude, of course. But then it's almost thinking, okay, so even though this particular thing that I'm going to say isn't rude, how do I say it to make sure that I'm not perceived in a way that, you know, I'm this angry black girl? And a lot of the time, I didn't even speak up on certain things, you know, in debates, in a debate setting or in a meeting setting. I just chose to just say nothing, because I thought it's easy for me to just sit here silent and say nothing than to be labelled as something that I'm not, and have that reputation on my back, you know, for the foreseeables. But definitely now, I don't, you know, mince my words. I'll say it how it is, obviously with respect.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's
that might have impacted on me on the past.
And again, it's that thing, like, you know, if I'm say employed by someone and I'm acting angry and acting like a, you know, shouting and things, then people will just say, oh yeah, that guy is just a nasty piece of work. But if you did it, it would be like, oh look, yeah, that's just a typical angry black woman.
Yeah.
So again, they're using that, you know, to feed into a stereotype in a way that they wouldn't go, oh well, that's just a typical white guy, angry white guy. It would be just that particular guy is unpleasant.
Exactly. Yeah.
While they would use, and you know, it could be that the person is unpleasant, but they would use that to feed the belief that their stereotype is correct.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. So true.
So obviously, I mean, this. Yeah, I'm sure we could, you know, spend hours covering. You know,
yeah, I could talk for hours about it.
Yeah, and obviously, I think you probably are part of what you're going to be doing going forward.
Yeah.
So onto that, obviously, we've talked about some of the things you've got going on, and obviously the things you're looking to get funding for. Where do you see, you know, yourself and the Next Gen movement in, say, you know, a year's time? What are your hopes and plans, you know, for the organisation, but also on a personal level, or, you know, because I think I've seen you say before that your plan isn't to be involved in this, you know, forever, so to speak.
Yeah, no, what we hope that there's going to be a change and we don't have to do it forever.
Yeah.
But I mean, going forward, it's just kind of linking back to those 4 E's, but really making a big impact in each of them. So the current 5 workshops that we want to launch, that's a perfect starter. But we also want to provide opportunities for people that have just come out of prison. So the people that are on the fringes of society that definitely do not get any opportunities to have a second chance with education. So we really want to get into schools. We're looking at doing a Black History Week. So it's small, but it's a start. A lot of the schools in Nottingham are actually academies, which means that they've actually got a lot of power to do whatever they want, basically, in terms of the curriculum. So we really want to build relationships with those schools and the teachers in the schools, and have an influence on the curriculum. So that's something that's a longer term goal, because that's it's going to be quite a big task for us to do, but it's something that we're not scared of. So yeah, definitely tackling the curriculum, making sure that it's more inclusive, you know, and there's not just Black history, but, you know, incorporating Black people into art, into music. So, you know, people feel like, and not just Black people, you know, white people, Asian people, so they can also educate themselves and they can also learn from a very young age. With employability, so we really want to implement workshops, like I say, on diversity, go in and provide training for them. That's something that we're really looking and keen to do in the future. Lots and lots of workshops and projects. So around, again, you know, empowerment, and engagement. What else? Have a massive influence on the police as well. So, like I say, we're in regular conversations with the police. Myself and Janelle and Shan have put ourselves forward to actually be involved in their training. So they're new recruits, but also there are, before you become a police, you could be voluntary, the community officers.
Oh, the community support officers, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So training for them as well. So we really want to start off by understanding what's already been done, what their training packs look like, what the presentations look like, asking the community their suggestions, so not just going in with ours, and helping them with the training really to make sure that it's right, to make sure that they're bringing the right people onto the police force, as well as continuously holding them to account and badgering them, if you like, to make sure that they're looking at who's already in their police force, who potentially is racist, and what they're doing about that. And with the council as well, so we really want to work closely with the council. They're going to help us with things like schools and potential future events that we want to put on for next year. So there's a lot really. It's difficult to kind of put into just one sentence where we see ourselves going, but ultimately we just want to be a voice for the community. We're working on our website at the moment as well, which is almost ready, and that's going to have all the information on, as well as kind of a hub where people in Nottingham, it doesn't matter who you are, you can go on the website, you can have a look at the hub, and it's going to be information that's easily accessible for people, whether it's legal advice, whether it's mental health support, whether it's, police documents, so reports, or guiding people to understand, what to do in this situation. If you stop by a police officer, how should that conversation go? So yeah, lots and lots of work, lots of community work, and lots of work with the people in power. So yeah, I hope that kind of answers that.
Yeah, just a couple of things then at the minute.
Yeah, it's a massive piece, but at the end of it, it all links into those 4 E's that I spoke about earlier. Yeah,
fantastic. Well, I think it's really inspiring and pretty incredible seeing the work you're doing. Hopefully, it can further continue to inspire and encourage people, and obviously going forward as it goes as well. I guess it's gonna. I know, like you say, you're already involved in working with other organisations, but it's going to take the involvement of other people. A team of 3. It's obviously going to keep. As the projects grow and things like that, it's going to need people with that same passion to support it and to engage and get involved.
100%, yeah.
And help you, your team and you 3 make the difference.
We want to work with the youth as well to make sure that their voice is being heard, and because that's the whole point of this, really. They're the next generation, and that's kind of why we've called it Next Gen Movement. We want to make sure that their voices are heard. We take their ideas and suggestions and thoughts on board in every decision that we make as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Excellent. So before I let you go, obviously, as I said, we'll make sure there's a link up to the GoFundMe, because I know it's no good trying to read them out because they're really weird, long-winded usually things. But for people that do want to follow what Next Gen Movement are doing, and to or to contact or engage with the team, where are the best places to find? As you said, the website will be soon, but where are the best places, or social media and that, to follow and contact?
Yeah, so on Facebook, it's just Next Gen Movement, so a space in between each word, and it's basically a hub of, and it gives you a full update on everything that we're up to, as well as our Instagram page. which is Next Gen Movement _. There's also a link to the GoFundMe page on the Instagram and the Facebook page as well, if you did want to donate to some of the community projects that we're going to be working on, as well as full details on those projects and things that we've been up to so far. We've also got an email address as well, so if you've got any inquiries, any questions, or if you want to get in touch with us for an opportunity. I mean, we just put out there for to be a counsellor, so if you're interested in sort of politics counsellor, then we can offer you a mentor, etc. So that's just one of the examples to where we can offer support. So if you wanted to get in touch with us by email, it's nextgenmovementuk@gmail.com. So yeah, that's basically how you can get in touch with us. Like I said, we're working on the website, which should be done very soon. And yeah, that's how you can get in touch with us.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for taking time out to speak to me. It's clear from this conversation that you're very busy. There's
it's all right.
So much going on. Again, I think it's fantastic what you're doing, and I know I've been following you. I think the first I remember learning of the organisation was when the Black Lives Matter banner went up on the council house, which I thought was incredible. And I've obviously we've been in communication for a while, trying to sort this, and it's been really interesting. Like I say, watching the sort of updates online, seeing the different people you're talking to, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next. So.
Watch this space. It's been lovely speaking to you as well, and thanks for having me.
No worries.
On your podcast.
Excellent, and good luck with it all. It's great, and I think it's exactly what the city needs.
So a massive thank you there to Tyla Henriques-White for taking time to speak to me. As you can probably gather, the Next Gen Movement, they are so busy at the moment. They're such a fast-paced organisation that they've got things going, and I'm glad to support them. I'm glad to be able to speak to them and find out more. Do check them out on Facebook at Next Gen Movement UK. See what they're doing. If you can, please do support their funding campaigns to help put these workshops on that can make such a difference to people's lives. And as I say, please, show your support for this group. I think it's been said before. It's not about not being racist. It's about actively being anti-racist. About calling out. It's about seeing what's happening in the community. How education is. We need to tackle about the way Black history is taught in British schools, and British history as well, and we need to talk. That needs to improve. Talk to your families, talk to your children. There's plenty of material sources, documentaries. Some of them we talked about in the show out there. There's plenty of sources online that are sharing how you can get access to that information. And if you can, get down to the square on Saturday for the Black Lives Matter march. That's at 12 p.m. So again, thank you so much for Tyla for speaking to us. I've got nothing but the massive respect for all three of them and the work they've managed to do already. Prior to the protests early this year, Next Gen Movement didn't exist. It wasn't even, from what I can gather, an idea they had, and yet they've taken that forward. They're meeting with organisations. They're putting projects together. It's fantastic, and it's great to see. It's something I think Nottingham does brilliantly. These sort of, community groups and things like that, and the way that the community works together. So it's fantastic to see. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Hopefully you find it as interesting as I did being a part of it. Hopefully you've learned some new things. Hopefully you're going to go away and learn more, and hopefully you're going to give your support to the next gen movement, and we can help make things better. No new names to announce for episodes yet. If you want to keep an eye on us, we'll be announcing some more on Facebook as usual, facebook.com/ngdigital or at ngdigitaluk on Twitter. I'm working on a new website for NG Digital and the NG Meets podcast at the moment. That hopefully will be coming soon, and that'll offer a new hub for all episodes and links and things like that. As ever, you can find us on all the usual podcasting apps like Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, Podcast Addict, Apple and Google Podcasts, things like that. We're available everywhere. Please share this podcast about. Please check out some of our past podcasts if you've not heard them, and let us know who you'd like to hear on the show. We're coming up to episode 50 soon as well, so we're trying to put something together special for that. It's been quite an up and down ride, but we've got some great people we are speaking to, so hopefully some great shows coming up for you. We will announce as soon as we can, but obviously I don't like to say anything too early because things can change, especially given the current circumstances. But thanks again for listening. Hope you enjoyed this. Please spread the word. Let us know what you think. Follow the podcast on whatever app, subscribe to it on whatever app you're using. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of NG Meets. For now, that's all. Goodbye.